Chapter 3. Echoes of Tomorrow. The Eloi encampment wasn't what Alex had expected. There were no gleaming spires, no utopian gardens, no monuments to the distant past. Just a series of elevated platforms lashed between trees, rope bridges, woven barriers of plant fiber, and scaffold-like structures draped in fabrics that shimmered faintly in the strange, coppery sunlight. There was tasteful use of metal or glass panels of some scavenged ancient tech, but only where it added strength or a pleasing aspect. Beyond the serene domes and vine-wrapped towers of the river settlement, life moved with a peculiar rhythm. Not all Eloi here were the passive, fragile creatures Alex had expected from George's writings. Among the population, a noticeable minority moved with sharper eyes, firmer postures, taller, leaner, still beautiful, but with the subtle wariness of people who understood caution. These were the river folk Eloi. They fished the great river, built their own tools, and maintained the simple but effective woven shelters that dotted the river's edge. These Eloi moved with grace, silent save for the soft footfall of their bare feet. Some of these people were average-sized, some tall, lithe, but human, fully, unmistakably human. Their hair was predominantly golden, sun-bleached blonde, but scattered through the crowd were auburn strands, soft ruddy reds, pale browns. Some, too, were clearly not Caucasian, lighter shades of brown. Varying, but there was absolutely no indication that such things mattered. All faces fine-boned, striking, near elven without the embellishments of fantasy. For all their beauty, though, there was tension. Wariness. The group that had hauled Alex through the brush didn't handle him cruelly, but neither did they treat him as a guest. He was an unknown, an intrusion. It was they who had intercepted Alex on his arrival, alert enough to take initiative, cautious enough to defer to their leader rather than act rashly. They led him to a canopy at the center of the camp, and there sat a figure, not a king or clan leader, watching him with the exact expression of someone seeing a ghost they hadn't expected, was a man. Taller than the Eloi, broad-shouldered, weathered, hair streaked grey, beard neatly trimmed but rough. Clothing was a patchwork of Victorian leather, scavenged Morlock armor, and fabrics woven from something that looked almost like silk. He stood, cleaned his hands with a rag. A knife and half-finished longbow he'd been crafting sat at his feet. His eyes locked on Alex, sharp, calculating. He stepped down off the dais-like platform. "You speak English," the man said, voice crisp, precise, and edged with suspicion. "A fellow Londoner, if my ear's not mistaken." Alex coughed, struggling to his feet as the Eloi released him. "Yeah, London." The man didn't relax. "You've come a very long way, if so." Alex dusted himself off. "George?" The man's brow furrowed. "Do I know you?" "No, I guess not. Alex paused, exhaling. "I think I do. I know who you are. You're George H. Wells, the inventor, the traveler." George's expression stiffened, his arms folded tighter. "And who might you be, then?" I'm your descendant, kind of, not directly, from your sister's line. The house, it passed down. I inherited—" He paused, then offered his hand. "Alex Wells." George's eyes narrowed. His stance didn't relax. Not yet. "That's a very bold claim." "It's true." Alex spread his hands. "I found your notes, the journals, and—" He hesitated, knowing this was the hill to die on. "The prototype." George's eyes flickered. His jaw shifted. Something in his posture cracked, not fully relaxed, but no longer hostile. "The prototype?" he exclaimed, but regaining composure quickly. "Yeah, Alex nodded. It worked. Or, at least, enough to build a full-size craft based on it. I've come from the year 2025 using technology based on your little test run. George's gaze lingered, thoughtful now. But then he straightened. His eyes narrowed again, and the suspicion returned. How do I know, he said slowly, that you're really my... He did the maths, took a guess. Great-great-grandnephew? Alex opened his mouth, but before he could answer, another voice spoke. He is. I sense no deceit from him. The voice was soft, clear, male but airy, almost musical, a kind of gentleness threaded with something else, something other. Alex seemed to hear him from inside and outside his own head. Both men turned towards the voice. From the shadows near the edge of the platform, a figure stepped forward. Taller than most Eloi, but still slender, as a young adult would be. Pale skin, hair white gold like his Eloi mother's, eyes full of grace, luminous in the filtered sunlight. His frame was lithe, but the shoulders carried a hint of something stronger beneath. Maybe wiry was a better word. In fact, a lot of these people looked honed from years of living close to this new land. He realized. The young man was wearing the same mishmash of Morlock and Victorian home-brew armor and looked like a cross between a lost boy and an elf from fantasy stories, without the pointy ears, of course. Good morning, Sander. George acknowledged him with as much love as a Victorian lifelong bachelor could master. But Sander knew. He isn't lying, Sander said, stepping forward unhurried. His gaze flicked between them, focused more on Alex. And his mind smells like yours. Alex blinked. Smells? George grimaced, running a hand over his beard. Ah, yes, he does that. Both men glanced at Sander, equally bemused and faintly offended. Sander just shrugged and offered a shy smile. It's Eloi humor. George's mouth twitched, and for the first time the tension broke. He laughed. Not loud, but genuine. Warm. Eloi humor indeed. Sander tilted his head. It's true. Well, that settles that, decided George. Come, Alex Wells, let's have a cup of what passes for tea in this era. The conversation stretched long after that, an unraveling of timelines, of explanations, of losses and gains. George told of Weena, of saving her on his return, only to lose her years later to a conflict far greater than anything he'd understood on his first visit. His voice became brittle with emotion as he recounted, but he regained composure quickly. He explained the Morlocks, not one tribe, but many. Fractured. Some bestial, some horrifyingly organized, some worse. He confirmed his notes of their having used the Eloi as a food source, whole bone fields underground. He had resolved to exterminate them where he could find them. The Eloi were good people. Some of them anyway. Some were the same, indifferent automatons he'd first met. But they didn't deserve to become dinner for the dregs of a nightmare fuel offshoot of the human race. And they deserved to die because of Weena. Why didn't you go back and prevent her death? Alex asked. Simple, replied George. I'd run out of pitch blend after my return trip here. But even if I could go back now, and I could, with whatever contraption you've come here in, I expect... There is a whole community of people here who I love and respect, and could not bring myself to erase their lives as they have played out, just for my own selfish needs, especially that of my son. Sander, his son. Named Alexander like you, actually. What a strange little quirk of time, eh? George said quietly, but the Eloi found that excessive. He smiled, faintly pained. So, Sander, it was. Sander bowed slightly, his gaze full of curiosity but caution. Alex could feel his presence, not just standing there, but pressing at the edges of his thoughts. Not invasive, but curious, gentle fingers brushing the outline of his mind. "You are loud," Sundar said softly. "Well, I was aiming for cool, but since I'm 800,000 years away from a pair of sunglasses, I suppose it doesn't matter." Alex observed. George set his cup of disappointing local tea down and stretched. "Sunglasses. Ah, anachronisms. Fellow chrononauts, are we not?" Alex, momentarily confused, asked, "Chrononaut? Oh, that. George. Well, if an astronaut sails among the stars, what else would one call a traveler across the tides of time?" Alex decided to roll with it. "Stuff it. Yeah, I like it. Chrononauts we are." George smiled. "I'm sure you could do with a wash and some food. The people here have already prepared both. Don't be surprised. Some of them are quite literally more than intuitive and know your needs before you do. And tomorrow you can show me your timecraft. Let's see what 120 years of advancements look like." Alex cringed a little. He was proud of what he had accomplished, but he was about to show the original Time Master his home brew time machine. George's machine was beautiful and elegant, if less able than his. Cobbled together with copper wire, quartz nicked from the Natural History Museum display, a homemade nuclear power plant based on 19th century tech, and bits of Elon Musk's finest, all not so lovingly bolted to a mobile military hairdryer, he felt he had definitely lost the coolest-looking time machine contest already. "This'll be fun," he sighed. As the next morning sun rose, they set out. As they travelled, they spoke more of the 20th and 21st centuries, George amazed at the events and advancements Alex spoke of. "I'm surprised anyone survived the Third World War at all," he said. "World War III? There wasn't one. At least up until I had left, anyway." Alex responded, puzzled. "I tell you, man, I visited a point not long after the middle of the 20th century. I saw the atomic clouds. London was being systematically destroyed. I barely escaped." George insisted. "But it never happened, George. In my timeline, after the development of atomic weapons, we entered a period called the Cold War, a euphemism for a constant state of potential war, I suppose. Over a half-century of men with planet-ending nightmares, staring each other down from either side of a fence." George was troubled. His and Alex's timelines were clearly linked, but this instance of an event that happened in one, but not another, he would have to look into this new aspect of time traversal. George was contemplative. "Our timelines diverged at some point, or mine has been overwritten." But discerning the alien shape under a cover in the brush, he changed tack. "We'll discuss this oddity later," George declared. "Seems we're here." Alex grinned, yanking the cover aside. "Let me introduce you to the Time Rider." George looked at him inquiringly. "Honestly, I just made that up there now. I suppose that's its name now, though." The Time Rider emerged into view, amphibious, squat, and utterly utilitarian in military design. The hoverskirt tucked beneath the frame, the large rear fan mounted not only for propulsion, but doubling as part of the resonance stabilizer. Quartz rods lined the hull, catching sunlight in fractured rainbows. George circled it, brow furrowed. A hovering craft frame, practical, smart. I was severely limited by the technology of my time as far as mobility went. His knuckles tapped the plating. "Fan resonance stabilization? You've wrapped your phase field generation into the propulsion assembly." "Exactly." George crouched, peering underneath. "Your phase drive. What's the chronoshift rate?" 100 years a second, steady state." George blinked. 100 per second? Yup. Alex smiled. "Field holds stable up to 2.5 tons. Push more, and it gets twitchy." Alex folded his arms, watching George circle the hovercraft with the same expression someone might give a slightly unusual lawnmower. No jaw-dropping, no stunned disbelief. Just measured steps, taps on the hull, an occasional thoughtful grunt. Alex felt irritation creeping in. After everything, the engineering, the sleepless nights, the sheer lunacy of reverse engineering a time machine from Victorian notes. This was the reaction. No wide-eyed amazement. No, good heavens, man. No, that's amazing. Just clinical analysis. George finally straightened, knuckles brushing the quartz stabilizer as if concluding an inspection. Not elegant, he muttered eventually, but robust. His gaze swept over the field coils. You've sacrificed aesthetics for function, a sensible choice, given, well, everything. One would think you underwhelmed, Uncle, said Alex. He thought his annoyance was well hidden, but as like him, his uncle was that rare breed of obsessive scientist who was also very attuned to social cues and body language. George sighed and rested a hand on the hull, expression softening. I've seen wonders, Alex. Cities floating in clouds, engines that could transmute lead to gold. I don't shock easily anymore. A beat. His voice dropped, quieter, more genuine. But this is impressive. Not just the machine. The fact you built it, alone. Then a smirk tugged one corner of his mouth. Don't let it go to your head. It's still ugly as sin. Alex laughed. Spare pitch blender. George called from the back of the fan apparatus. 6 kilos, safely behind shielding in the back. Alex replied. We call it uranium now, don't you know? George's amazed face popped around the side of the fan. 6 kilos? Where did you get that much? And now is relative, nephew, he added, with little relation to the now you now find yourself in. Oh, back in my time it was sold in every corner store, joked Alex. George humphed an I'm sure, and lifted the canopy to scan the cockpit with his inventor's keen eye. What the... is that my miniature time apparatus? Indeed, the little engine that started both of our wild journeys. I thought it a witty decoration. I hope you aren't offended. Not at all. There's enough potential in that thing to show someone the beginning and end of all time, and you have it as a vehicle adornment. Even I can appreciate the humor in that. His eyes caught the toggle mounted under a shielded panel. Bright red. Labeled Emergency Slipstream. Not advised. That, George said dryly, looks like a very bad idea. Alex popped the panel open, grinning. Emergency slipstream. Disables the field dampeners. Compresses the entire trip for my time to yours down to 60 seconds, give or take, provided the reactor is fully fueled. Less fuel, less time traversed. Linear drop-off. And it will burn every last drop doing it. Tested? Asked George. Hell no. Alex snorted. This is last resort stuff. I don't even know if I'd survive. George barked a short laugh. Dear God, you really are a Wells. Yeah, seems to be catching. Alex indicated Sandar with a curt nod. That one definitely got his looks from his mother, though. You cheeky bugger. George laughed. Sandar stood quietly at the tree line, the banter from his father and cousin? Alien to him. His wide eyes locked on the machine. To his mind it was a wound, a tremor in the weave of reality. Something that wasn't supposed to be, but was. Beautiful, terrifying, inevitable. As George finished his inspection, he slapped the hull. Sturdy, ugly, smart, very... You! Alex smirked. You know what else is ugly and sturdy. George raised a brow. What? That bloody house of yours. George blinked. The house? Wait, what happened to that? Alex sighed theatrically, arms spreading. Oh, the house? The house became a yoke around my neck, didn't it? The burden of destiny, he declared theatrically. The weight of generational lunacy, more like. He grinned. Frankly, the only reason I went along with this whole affair was so I could give you a smack in the face someday. George blinked, then laughed. A full, rich laugh that echoed through the clearing. Well, I suppose that's as good a reason as any. Well, I've showed you mine, Alex said, adding, time to show me yours. George deduced a vaguely risque aspect to the unfamiliar turn of phrase, but ever the gentleman, he resisted the urge to inquire. Instead, he explained, my machine has been disassembled and hidden. I could tell you where, but as you have no frame of reference in this new land, the where is kind of irrelevant. I'm sure you'll want to see what is to you a museum piece, all in good time. Then he suggested, let's show you some more of this amazing, terrifying world. Hope you've got your walking boots on. Being ex-military of a sort, Alex did in fact have appropriate footwear, much to his relief. Later that long, hot day, they crested the ridge in a contemplative silence, boots crunching over fragments of marble, half swallowed by moss and creeping vine as they reached their apparent destination. What had once been a grand plaza stretched below them, cracked, eroded, but still bearing the unmistakable geometry of something built with purpose, long, long ago. George led the way down a winding slope. This way, I thought. Well, you should see it. As they descended, the undergrowth thinned. Patches of the original stonework showed through, huge tiles etched with faint, intricate lines beneath layers of dust. Ahead stood a wide, circular platform, nearly 20 meters across, set into the earth like the face of a giant watch. A broad surface of smooth, black glass. Unbroken, seamless. Its edge was framed by dulled brass, pocked with green corrosion but stubbornly intact. Some of the rings were left carelessly at the edge of the obsidian surface. Alex slowed, frowning. Wait. He squinted at the platform, recognition tugging at the back of his mind. Is this the talking rings? The thing you wrote about? George nodded. Yes, not the same set, mind you. That archive is miles away. This is a different installation, same design, larger, better preserved. Alex walked cautiously to the edge. No screens, no interfaces, no controls. He ran a hand over the flawless glass. This doesn't make sense. Why this? Why not? I don't know. Something better? The question hung in the air, but even as he said it, an answer slotted into place. Obvious, undeniable. He stepped back, gaze sweeping over the apparatus, a grim laugh escaping his throat. No, actually, yeah. No circuits to fry, no servers to corrupt, no plastics to rot. If this world and its civilizations went through as many collapses as everything else I've seen suggests. He gestured broadly. Then of course something like this survives. How many civilizations? How many advanced? How many stagnated? I supposed the clock just stopped at talking rings out of sheer chance. I suppose they survived longest because they were made to. George smiled, not unkindly. Took me years to come to the same conclusion, though when I left my era the phonograph was the height of audio technology. Alex nodded slowly, turning a ring over in his hand. Elegant, crude. We have data storage in the 21st century that would blow your mind, George, but nothing that lasts as long as this. Spin one. Alex reached out to take another ring, finding it heavier than it appeared. He set the golden oracle turning. It caught instantly, accelerating smoothly as though powered by invisible bearings. A faint light shone beneath as it spun. A voice rose, dispassionate, coldly precise, unnervingly close to human. Record 641 Alpha, Social Cast Engineering Protocol initiated. Year reference, 35,174, Anno Domini, Catalogue year 350,174. Subject class, Homo lux, colloquial designation Eloi. Objective: anthropomorphic aesthetic optimization, negative behavior suppression. Outcome: population compliance achieved. Visual parameters: juvenile proportionality minimized, phenotype adjusted to cultural attractiveness norms, neural aggression suppressants stabilized, compliance rates exceeded targets post-supervision collapse. Alex blinked. Did that just say 350,174 AD? George nodded grimly. Give or take a few years, indeed. Alex shook his head as if to clear it. That's not the future. That's mythology. Both, in fact, from our perspective. The ring rattled off further technical data, dates, obscure references. Wait, they still spoke English in this period? Alex asked. You aren't hearing with your ears, nephew. Some sort of electro-telepathic transmission, translated by your brain. George informed him. Try turning your head, moving closer or further away. Same volume, coming from the same direction. Amazed, he selected another ring and set it into motion. Secondary designation, Homo subterra. Colloquial designation, Morlock. Purpose: subterranean adaptation, industrial maintenance, predation deterrence. Post-collapse divergence exceeded intended cognitive thresholds. Result: caste schema destabilized beyond correction. A third ring, seemingly recorded with haste, layered with the sterile cadence of decayed bureaucracy. Final audit complete. Caste model unsustainable. Population collapse irreversible. Memory core offloaded to durable mnemonic media. Sovereign protocols terminated. End of line, end of line, end of line. The ring slowed and fell, rattling on the surface with a metallic cacophony, just like coins that had run out of momentum. One by one, the voices had faded back into history. Only the sound of wind blowing through cracks in the ancient structure remained. Alex stood stiff, staring. Whoever the hell they are, designed them, he said, voice incredulous. Not evolution, not natural selection, the Eloi, the Morlocks, their manufactured outcomes. Part of a tailored servant class to an advanced civilization. A failed one. George exhaled, not with surprise but weary resignation. Yes, exactly that. Alex scraped both hands back through his hair. Phew! He almost swore. Bloody hell! The Eloi weren't just passive. They were made that way. Made beautiful. Made compliant. George nodded, voice low. A domesticated humanity. The final product of a society that wanted something easy to look at. Something easy to manage. Alex paced a circle around the plinth, fists clenching and unclenching. And when these creators died, the whole system kept running, with no one left to maintain it. No fail-safes, just drift. George spoke, half to himself. A civilization 350,000 years more advanced than our time, dead 400,000 years now since. Like all empires, they fell hard and fast. Seems almost overnight. Alex was reeling. His eyes lifted to the broken sky. A planet-sized experiment left running on broken autopilot for hundreds of thousands of years. I can't believe I'm even having to deal with this crap. This place is nuts. No one spoke for a long while. The wind stirred the grass. The rings stood still. And the past, now unbidden, whispered no further.